The auctioneer mocked the human's empty pockets, until his final bid was his own life. The Great Bazaar of Zathra was said to be older than most empires. Suspended in orbit around a dim red star, it was a drifting cathedral of trade, a hollowed asteroid lined with glass corridors and shimmering vaults, where wealth and desperation mingle like perfume and smoke. Every species in the sector came to Zathra to barter, to flaunt their riches, or to watch the spectacle of the auction hall, an amphitheater carved from stone and steel, where the rarest treasures in the galaxy were sold. It was there, beneath the crystal lights, that Corin Vare prepared for tonight's auction. Corin was human, one of the few who dared live on Zathra without the backing of a faction or syndicate. He had little more than the clothes on his back, an old riscom, and a quiet, simmering memory of why he had come. He wasn't here for wealth. He wasn't here for trade. He was here for her. The beginning. The auctioneer, a towering foreign with skin like polished obsidian, opened the night's proceedings. His 4 eyes gleamed with cruelty, and his laughter echoed in the chamber like shattering glass. "Welcome, patrons of fortune," the auctioneer bellowed, his voice amplified across the amphitheater. "Tonight, we offer wonders unseen, marvels beyond imagination, and perhaps, for some of you, an end to boredom." Laughter rippled across the tiers. Alien nobles in jeweled silks, merchants wrapped in exosuits, crime lords reclining in hover chairs. Wealth glittered everywhere. Corin stood at the far back, unnoticed among the masses. His boots were scuffed, his jacket patched. A few beings glanced his way, eyes narrowing at the scent of poverty. The auction began with rare minerals, weapons stolen from war fronts, star maps carved into obsidian shards. Prices soared. Entire fleets were exchanged for trinkets. Corin waited. At last, the auctioneer raised a clawed hand. And now the prize of the night. From the shadows, guards led a figure into the light. Shackled wrists, a collar glowing with suppressive energy. She stumbled once, then straightened, her chin lifting in defiance. Corin's heart stopped. It was Lyra. Her skin shimmered faintly with bioluminescence, pale blue patterns across her arms and face. Her eyes, silver like starlight, glared at the crowd. She was a seraphine, an endangered race thought nearly extinct after the last war. And she was the reason Corin had crossed half the galaxy, selling everything he owned just to reach Zathra. The auctioneer grinned, showing serrated teeth. "Behold, a living seraphine, the last of her kind, captured from the ruins of Valon's Reach. Imagine the power of owning such a rarity. She can sing frequencies that bend matter. Her blood fuels reactors. Her very presence commands awe." The crowd murmured hungrily. The auctioneer spread his arms. "We begin the bidding at 10 million credits." The numbers climbed quickly. Merchants shouted over one another. Syndicate lords sneered and raised the stakes higher. 30 million. 50. 100. Corin stood still, his hands clenched. He had nothing. Not a single coin to his name. But when Lyra's gaze swept the crowd and landed on him, when her breath caught and her lips parted in stunned recognition, he knew she remembered. The middle. They had met years ago, when Corin's small salvage crew had stumbled across a seraphine life pod drifting in the wreckage of forgotten battle. Lyra had been inside, fragile and furious, swearing she'd rather die than be used. But Corin hadn't tried to sell her. He hadn't begged her for songs or blood. Instead, he'd offered her water, food, safety. And when bounty hunters came, he'd fought them, bare-handed, reckless, desperate, until she'd unleashed her voice to scatter their ship into dust. They'd parted ways after that, but not without a promise. A promise that if she ever needed him, he'd come. And now, seeing her bound on the stage, he knew that promise had brought him here. 500 million, barked a warlord, slamming a claw against his hover chair. 700, a jeweled matron countered. 1 billion, hissed the syndicate baron, his voice oily. The crowd gasped. The numbers had reached empire-shaking levels. Corin took a step forward. His voice carried through the silence. 1 life. Every head turned. The auctioneer's 4 eyes blinked in disbelief. Then laughter erupted. 1 life? The auctioneer repeated, mockery dripping from his tone. A bit of flesh and blood? Of worthless mortality. Corin didn't flinch. My life, in exchange for hers. The hall roared with amusement. Aliens jeered, nobles howled. What value is a human life? Sneered a merchant. They die so easily. Throw him out, shouted another. But Lyra's silver eyes burned with something fierce. The auctioneer raised a hand, silencing the crowd. His grin returned, sharper than ever. And yet, perhaps there is merit in entertainment. Let us test this bid. He leaned forward, his voice booming. Human, if your life is your currency, then prove it has value. Survive 3 trials before the hall, and she is yours. Fail and both of you perish. The crowd howled approval. This was better than profit. This was blood sport. Lyra's lips parted. Corin, no. But he only gave her the smallest smile. A promise is a promise. The trials. Trial 1. The Beast Arena. The first trial was combat. A pit opened beneath the stage, revealing a cage that hissed open. A beast slithered forth. 8 legs, armored hide, mandibles dripping with acid. The crowd cheered. Bets were cast instantly. Corin stood weaponless, only his fists and wits. The beast lunged. He rolled aside, heat searing his cheek as acid splattered stone. He remembered his salvage days. Never fight strength with strength. Use leverage. Use space. Dodging, feinting. He lured the beast toward a fractured column. At the last moment, he dove clear. The beast struck, shattering stone onto itself. With a roar, it staggered. Corin leapt, driving a jagged shard into its vulnerable underjaw. Acid hissed. The beast convulsed, then fell still. The hall erupted in shocked applause. Trial 2. The Poison Chalice. The auctioneer's grin widened. Strength of body, you have, but what a will. 2 chalices were brought forth, identical and gleaming. One held pure water. The other, a toxin that dissolved organs within seconds. You drink, the auctioneer purred. Choose wisely. If fate spares you, you continue. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for death. Corin stared at the cups. No clues, no markings, only chance. But then he glanced at Lyra. Even bound, she shifted her gaze ever so slightly, left, then right. She was singing silently, her voice too faint for others, but his heart remembered its rhythm. The resonance vibrated in his bones, guiding him. He lifted the right cup and drank. Cool water slid down his throat. Gasps filled the air. The other cup hissed as the poison corroded the metal bottom. The auctioneer's grin faltered. Trial 3. The Choice of Fire. The final trial was crueler still. 2 cages descended from the ceiling. One held Lyra. The other held a child, alien, trembling, sobbing. The auctioneer's voice was silk and venom. Fire will consume one. You may free only a single cage. Choose human. Save your seraphine or save innocence. The hall waited, breathless. Corin's gut twisted. He could save Lyra. He could keep his promise. But the child, Lyra's voice, raw with urgency, cut through. Corin, save the child. His chest ached. She was willing to burn to spare another. No, he whispered. Not like this. Then he shouted, voice echoing. My life is the bid. Take it and release them both. The crowd roared. The auctioneer froze. This wasn't the script. He wanted blood, not sacrifice. But the law of the auction was ancient. A final bid, once accepted, must be honored. The auctioneer's 4 eyes narrowed. Slowly, he raised his hand. So be it. Your life for theirs. The cages opened. Lyra fell forward, gasping. The child was carried away to safety. And Corin, he stood tall, waiting for the blades. The ending. But before the executioner's strike fell, a sound split the hall. A song. Lyra's voice, free now, rose in defiance. Her silver eyes blazed as her resonance shook the chamber. The suppressor collar lay broken at her feet. Walls trembled. Glass shattered. The audience clutched their ears as matter itself bent to her song. She strode forward, her shackles falling like dust. No more chains. No more auctions. Corin staggered as the resonance enveloped him, but he did not fall. Her song shielded him. The auctioneer bellowed in fury. But before he could strike, Lyra's voice pierced higher, and the great hall crumbled. When the dust cleared, the amphitheater was ruins. The audience had fled in terror. The auctioneer lay crushed beneath stone. And Corin, coughing blood but alive, felt Lyra's arms catch him. You fool, she whispered, trembling. You were willing to die for me. He smiled weakly. A promise is a promise. She pressed her forehead to his, her voice breaking. Then let me make one too. Never again will you stand alone. Together, they staggered from the ruins of the great bazaar, into a future unbought, unchained. And though Corin had bid his life, he had gained something greater. Trust returned, and a bond that no wealth could ever buy.